Okay, let's jump right in. Today's explainer tackles a really practical ancient problem. Think about it. How do you separate the incredibly rigorous, strict ethical rules meant for dedicated monks from the everyday rules meant for regular people who are just trying to live good lives? Well, to answer that, we're going to explore the Dhammika Sutta. It's this profound ancient dialogue that lays out exactly what virtue looks like, depending entirely on which path you choose to walk.
We've got a really clear roadmap for today. First, an ancient question. Second, the path of the monk. Third, the layman's daily duty. Fourth, the observance day. And finally, the ultimate reward. Part 1, an ancient question. Dhammika seeks wisdom. So our explainer kicks off in a very specific historical setting, the Jeddah Grove at Anathapindika's monastery. A lay follower named Dhammika shows up with 500 other followers, and they approach Gautama, the Buddha, to ask a really crucial question about how to live properly.
Dhammika basically asks how acting is a disciple virtuous, and he specifically wants to know the rules for two distinct groups. He asks the Buddha about the disciple who has gone from home to the homeless state, and the followers who are householders. It's actually a brilliant question, right? Because it fully acknowledges that you just can't expect a busy merchant or a parent to live by the exact same rules as a secluded ascetic.
Part 2, the path of the monk, the ascetic practice. Let's look at the first path the Buddha outlines in his response, which is meant entirely for those who have left their homes behind. First off, what even is a bhikkhu? Basically, a bhikkhu is a disciple living a highly disciplined, completely internally focused life. They have gone from home to the homeless state. They've completely separated themselves from everyday society to pursue total self-control and spiritual awakening.
The life of a monk is, honestly, all about intense restraint. Their daily actions are highly regulated. They only walk into the village for food at the right time, which is the forenoon. After they get their food, they have to sit secluded and remain inwardly thoughtful, not letting their minds just wander off to external things. And when they do speak, it should only be about the subtle Dhamma. Absolutely no slandering, no gossiping, and definitely no engaging with argumentative people who are just carried away by their emotions. But here's the really fascinating part, the reasoning behind these strict rules. Why only go to the village at the right time? Well, wandering around at the wrong time basically invites sensory overload. The text points out that sights, sounds, tastes, scents, and bodily contacts can easily overwhelm the mind. If a monk wanders indiscriminately, they risk obsession, they risk attachment. And there's this brilliant metaphor used here. A bhikkhu obviously still has to eat, sleep, and wash their robes, right? They still interact with the physical world, but they must engage with these worldly necessities without clinging to them. The text says they shouldn't be soiled by these things, quote, as a lotus is not wetted by a drop of water. Just like water rolls right off a lotus leaf, the monk has to move through the world without letting attachment soak in. So we end up with this really stark contrast between two very different ways of living. On one side, you've got the bhikshu, a homeless ascetic pursuing complete self-control and detachment. On the other side, you have the householder, the everyday layperson. The Buddha explicitly says it's just not possible for someone occupied with household life to realize the complete ascetic practice. They need their own set of rules. Part 3, the layman's daily duty, ethics in the everyday. Since a householder can't realistically drop everything and live like a secluded monk, the Buddha provides a highly practical framework. It's all about minimizing harm to others while still actively participating in the world. So we get these 5 foundational rules for the layperson, and notice how deeply social they are. It's not just about your own actions, it's about what you encourage others to do. Don't kill, sure, but also don't cause or incite someone else to kill. Don't steal or incite theft. Avoid unchastity, lies, and drinking intoxicants. These rules act as a kind of guardrail, keeping the layman virtuous while they navigate the messy, complex web of human society. The text gets incredibly vivid here to drive these points home. It says to avoid unchastity like you would avoid a literal pit of glowing charcoal. But what I find delightfully practical is the concession it makes right after. It says, hey, if you aren't able to lead a completely celibate life, which, let's be real, most householders aren't, then at the very absolute least, do not go to another's wife. It's a very grounded, realistic fallback for human nature. Now, when it comes to intoxicants, the text pulls absolutely no punches. The rationale is direct and uncompromising. Drinking leads to madness, it stupefies the mind. But the biggest issue? Through intoxication, foolish people perform evil deeds and then cause other heedless people to do the exact same thing. It creates a ripple effect of bad behavior that the virtuous householder just has to completely avoid.
Part 4. The Observance Day, the Middle Ground. Okay, so we've got the strict monk and the ethical layman. But what if the layman wants a taste of that ascetic life without permanently leaving their family behind? Well, that brings us to the fascinating concept of the Uposta, or Observance Day.
This whole observance schedule is tied directly to the lunar calendar, specifically on the 8th, 14th, and 15th days of the lunar fortnight, plus a special holiday of the half month. The layperson temporarily steps up their spiritual game. For these specific days, they actually simulate a monk-like state. During this observance, those standard 5 rules get a serious upgrade to an 8-factored system. The rule on chastity becomes strict celibacy for the day. Then they add 3 new ascetic rules. No eating food at night, abandoning luxuries like flower garlands and perfumes, and finally, sleeping on the ground or on a simple mat. By adopting these extra rules, the householder gets to briefly but intensely embrace the physical restraints of the homeless ascetic.
It's not just a list of don'ts, though. There are actual, actionable steps to follow on Observance Day. With a pure heart and joyful mind, they observe the day. In the morning, they distribute food and drink to the bhikkhus. And beyond that spiritual practice, their ongoing duties remain. Support your mother and father and engage in lawful, ethical trading. This is how you accumulate merit while still fully participating in the local economy and your family life. Part 5. The Ultimate Reward, Destination of the Diligent. We've seen the intense detachment of the monks and the practical ethics of the householder. But what's the actual end game here? What is the final goal for the layman who follows this worldly path diligently?
The text promises something really magnificent: rebirth among a class of heavenly beings known as the self-radiant devas. A diligent layman will be reborn as one of these gods after death. So even though a householder can't practice the complete ascetic discipline of a monk, this proves their path is still immensely valuable. It leads to a profoundly radiant spiritual destination in its own right. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. These texts are ancient, sure, but that tension they describe, it's entirely relevant today. We all feel that pull between wanting to retreat into quiet, personal mindfulness and needing to engage deeply with our chaotic social and professional lives. So ask yourself, in your own modern, busy life, how do you strike that balance? How do you practice true virtue while still living fully in the world? Keep that in mind and keep learning.